Manchester, in 1842, was not a city in the ordinary sense. It was a machine, a vast, relentless machine, powered by coal, iron, and human lives. Before the sun had fully risen, the chimneys were already breathing. Thick, black smoke crawled across the rooftops, turning daylight into a permanent dusk. Here, time was not measured by clocks, but by factory whistles. One blast summoned thousands inside, another released them, exhausted, into the streets. Manchester was celebrated as the workshop of the world, the beating heart of the Industrial Revolution. Wealth flowed outward from this place to every corner of the globe, but a question was rarely asked. Who truly benefited from this prosperity, and who was being crushed to sustain it? To understand Manchester in 1842, we must look beyond production figures and engineering marvels. We must step into the streets where progress demanded a price paid not in money, but in breath, in bodies, and in years quietly taken from those who had no choice but to give them. Seen from above, Manchester in 1842 reveals a city designed with ruthless efficiency. Rows of vast cotton mills stretch along the River Irwell and its man-made canals, their brick walls darkened by soot. These waterways were not built for beauty or leisure. They were industrial arteries, carrying coal, raw cotton, and finished cloth in an endless loop of production. Streets were laid out to move goods quickly, not to offer comfort. Worker housing rose in tight blocks behind the factories, walls thin, windows small, spaces calculated to store labor rather than support life. The river itself changed color, with the workday black with coal residue, pale and milky from chemical bleaching. Manchester did not grow from royal decree or ancient tradition. It expanded violently, driven by demand. This was a city engineered like a technical diagram, raw materials in, profits out. Human beings existed in between, treated as components replaceable, expendable. When a city is built for machines, people are forced to adapt to its rhythm or disappear beneath it. Inside Manchester's textile mills, time no longer belonged to the workers. Shifts stretched 12, sometimes 14 hours, broken only by brief pauses that offered little relief. The air was thick with cotton dust, burning the lungs with every breath. Machines roared without rest, a constant mechanical thunder so loud that many workers lost their hearing before reaching 30. Children were everywhere. Small bodies could move quickly between spinning frames and exposed gears, where adult hands could not reach. One slip, one moment of fatigue, was enough to lose a finger, a hand, or a life. Accidents were not rare events. They were expected. There was no insurance, no compensation, no time to recover. When one body collapsed, another immediately took its place. The factory did not know names. It counted output. Day after day, Manchester clothed the world in fine cotton, while those who produced it surrendered their youth, their health, and their future 1 hour at a time, in rooms where the machines never slept. When the factory gates finally opened, workers returned to neighborhoods built in its shadow. Narrow alleys packed tightly behind the mills, where sunlight rarely reached the ground. Waste, dirty water, and human filth flowed together through open drains. Manchester had no modern sewer system. Disease traveled faster than news. Cholera, typhus, and tuberculosis became familiar visitors. Families of 6 or 7 crowded into single rooms. At night, they slept in shifts because there was not enough floor space for everyone at once. Damp walls oozed moisture. Coal smoke clung to clothing, skin, and lungs. The smell of rot and chemicals never fully faded. To factory owners and the growing middle class, these streets were almost invisible. Yet this was where Manchester's labor force was rebuilt each night, just enough to return to work the next morning. The city did not require comfort or dignity. It required survival barely. These neighborhoods were not accidents. They were the logical outcome of a system that demanded labor, but refused responsibility for the lives that supplied it. In 1842, something rare happened in Manchester. The machines slowed, then stopped. Across the industrial towns of northern England, workers launched what became known as the plug plot riots. They did not attack factories with fire. Instead, they pulled the boiler plugs, draining steam and forcing production to halt. Their demands were simple: shorter hours, wages that could sustain life, and recognition as human beings rather than tools. Streets filled with marching workers, Soldiers were deployed. Shots were fired. Some were killed. Many were arrested. Fear spread among factory owners who had never imagined their system could be interrupted. The strikes ultimately failed to achieve immediate reform, but they achieved something else. For the first time, the cost of industrial progress became impossible to ignore. Manchester in 1842 revealed a hard truth. Progress does not produce justice on its own. Without resistance, the machine only grows more efficient at crushing those inside it. The boilers were relit. The factories reopened. But the idea that this system could be challenged had already taken root. While workers endured overcrowded streets and endless shifts, another Manchester existed only a few blocks away. Wider roads, cleaner air, solid brick homes set back from the factories, gentlemen's clubs where mill owners discussed profits over wine and cigars. The distance between these two worlds could be crossed in minutes, yet socially it was almost unbridgeable. Wealth did not flow downward. It gathered and hardened at the top. Factory owners rarely walked through the slums, and workers were never invited into drawing rooms where decisions about their lives were made. This division shaped daily experience. The same city produced radically different realities depending on where one stood. Manchester was not simply unequal, it was compartmentalized. One side powered the machinery, the other enjoyed its rewards. This separation allowed the system to continue, out of sight, out of mind. The industrial city proved that economic success could coexist with widespread suffering, as long as the suffering remained hidden behind brick walls and social distance. What happened in Manchester did not stay in Manchester. The model it perfected spread rapidly across the world. Factories multiplied, cities expanded overnight. Cheap labor, long hours, polluted air, and social division became familiar features of industrial growth from Europe to America and beyond. Manchester was no longer just a city, it was a template. Yet from this same environment came resistance and reform, campaigns for labor laws, limits on child employment, and the right to organize all drew strength from places like this. The city that demonstrated the raw power of industrial capitalism also exposed its moral limits. Manchester showed that efficiency could outrun ethics, and that technological progress did not automatically bring human progress with it. Every reform that followed carried the imprint of earlier suffering. The smoke that darkened Manchester's skies also signaled a turning point in how societies began to question who progress was really for, and who was being left behind in its shadow. Looking back at Manchester in 1842 from the 21st century, it is easy to admire the industrial achievements and forget the path that led to them. Modern factories are quieter, cities are cleaner, yet the core question remains unchanged. Who pays the hidden cost of our comfort? Manchester is not simply a chapter in history books. It is a mirror. It reflects the moment when human systems grew faster than human responsibility. The mills may be silent now, but the logic that built them still exists. Global supply chains, invisible labor, distant suffering, these are not new inventions. They are refined versions of an older design. Manchester reminds us that progress without accountability creates distance between cause and consequence. And when that distance grows too wide, it becomes easy to ignore the lives that make modern life possible. The past does not warn us loudly. It waits quietly, asking whether we have learned anything at all. Manchester, in 1842, reshaped the modern world, but it also left behind a question that has never been fully answered. Can a city grow without sacrificing its most vulnerable people? Manchester, in 1842, reshaped the modern world, but it also left behind a question that has never been fully answered. Can a city grow without sacrificing its most vulnerable people? Manchester was not built from smoke and steel alone. It was built from human endurance, from unnamed workers whose labor fueled an empire they would never benefit from. As we reconstruct this city through images and data, we are not simply reviving the past. We are examining a pattern that continues to shape the present. If there is another city, another era, where prosperity concealed a cost few were willing to acknowledge, that story is waiting as well. And perhaps, by choosing which past to revisit next, we decide which truths we are finally ready to face.